Hi folks, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to episode 9 of I Like Big Boats and I Cannot Lie, the weekly video series where I talk about my favorite thing, submarines. We have a lot to discuss today. This week spans November 9th to 15th. So, with that being said, get ready, get set, let's dive right in. First up is the USS Barb, SSN 596, laid down on this date in 1959. The contract to build Barb had been awarded to Ingalls Shipbuilding of Pascagoula, Mississippi, in March of 1959. Barb, a permit-class fast attack sub, was the second of her name. Her motto was Latin for tyranny beware. The next year brought 597, USS Tullabee, to its commissioning by Electric Boat of Groton, Connecticut. Tullabee was a special project boat, the result of Project Nobska, a study developed by Admiral Arleigh Burke, who has his own extensive class of ships named after him. Tullabee incorporated the first bow-mounted spherical sonar array, forcing the torpedo tubes to be angled out and installed amidships. An extremely quiet turboelectric transmission powered by an S2C reactor producing 25 shaft horsepower propelled this ship to speeds in excess of 13 knots, though the exact numbers are, of course, classified. Next we have USS Dolphin, AGS 555, laid down on this date in 1962 by Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Kittery. Her number was taken from a block of cancelled hulls slated for the World War II Tench class. Dolphin was an unusual vessel, last of the conventional non-nuclear subs, and designed quite a bit differently than the standard. Her pressure hull was a constant diameter cylinder made using frames instead of bulkheads. Hull openings were minimized for structural integrity and weight reduction. Dolphin was used as a test platform by Navy and civilians alike, supporting all kinds of deep water research and surveys. Next, we have USS Corporal, SS-346, decommissioned on this date in 1973. She was stricken from the Naval Vessel Register on this date and transferred to the Turkish Navy under terms of the Security Assistance Program. Though she has since been scrapped, a section of hull containing the stern torpedo tubes remains at the Naval Museum in Istanbul. On 10 November 1927, we have the USS Argonaut, which had a ton of designations, so we'll just go with SS-166. Argonaut was launched from Portsmouth Navy Yard, sponsored by Mrs. Zillah Sears, daughter of Rear Admiral William D. McDougall. She was the first of the second generation of V-boats commissioned in the late 1920s, a series of vessels built under the Fleet Boat Program. USS Barracuda, SSK-1, was commissioned in 1951. Her keel had been laid on the 1st of July, 1949, by Electric Boat in Groton. I think Barracuda is best known for one of its crewmen. Future President Jimmy Carter served as an officer as part of Barracuda's pre-commissioning crew and during its active service, until he was reassigned in 1952. The three SSK boats, Barracuda, Bass, and Bonita, were equipped with a low-frequency BQR bow-mounted sonar array as part of Project KO. The project experimented with passive acoustics to increase and improve convergence zone detection ranges against enemy subs. In 1954, the USS Darter, SS-576, was laid down by Electric Boat. Darter was a unique sub based on the Tang class, with upgrades to her acoustic, electronic, and fire control gear. She was designed to experiment with various naval innovations, including a 3-man helmsman plainsman station using stick controls. USS Triton, SSRN 586, was commissioned in 1959, also built by Electric Boat. Most of these vessels come from the same place. That's kind of what Electric Boat does all day, produce submarines. Triton was a radar picket submarine. I'd never heard this term before, but according to Wikipedia, it means a radar-equipped vessel used to increase the radar detection of a Navy or military force to protect it from surprise attack. Here, picket is an old term for a sentry placed forward of a defensive line for advanced warning purposes. I had never heard of this. That is very cool. At the time of her commissioning, Triton was the largest, most powerful, and most expensive sub ever created, built at a cost of $109 million, $1.18 billion in today's money, at a staggering length of 447 feet 6 inches. She's the only U.S. sub to be powered by 2 reactors. On November 11th, we take a brief pause for Veterans Day, honoring military members of all types. It coincides with Armistice Day and Remembrance Day, which marked the end of World War I in the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. Originally, the U.S. celebrated it as Armistice Day until 1954, when the holiday was renamed. For all of you folks out there who get the day off, I hope it's lovely and peaceful. If you're a federal worker currently not getting paid, you have my deepest sympathies. November 11th, 1943, the USS Bluegill, SS-242, was commissioned at Naval Submarine Base, New London. She had been built just up the way at Electric Boat in Groton. Bluegill was a Gatto-class hunter-killer submarine named for a sunfish from the Mississippi Valley. She completed 6 war patrols during World War II and is credited with sinking 10 Japanese vessels. Next up is a familiar name, the USS Tullabee, SS-284 this time, another Gatto-class sub. 284 was launched on this date in 1942, sponsored by Mrs. Lucille Dunlap Hurd, wife of Kenneth C. Hurd, Navy Cross recipient and former commanding officer of USS Seal. In 1969, the USS Sandlance, SSN 660, was launched, sponsored by Mrs. Thomas J. McIntyre. I'm making an assumption that this refers to the New Hampshire senator, which would make her Myrtle Ann Clement. Sandlance, a Sturgeon-class fast attack sub, was the last ship to be built for the Navy at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. In 1981, the USS Ohio, SSBN 726, lead ship of her class, was commissioned. The principal speaker at her commissioning ceremony, Vice President George H.W. Bush, remarked the boat introduced a new dimension in our nation's strategic deterrence. Admiral Hyman G. Rickover, father of the nuclear navy, said that Ohio should strike fear into the hearts of our enemies. Captain A.K. Thompson assumed command of the Blue Crew, and Captain A.F. Campbell assumed command of the Gold. Ohio is in active service, homeboarded at Bangor, Washington. Her motto is, always first. She's slated to enter Puget Sound Naval Shipyard Ship and Submarine Recycling Program by 2026, if there's a ship built to replace her by then. On the 12th of November, we start in 1940 with the keel laying of the USS Greenling, SS-213, a Gatto-class diesel-electric sub built by Electric Boat. Greenling participated in 12 war patrols throughout her career before decommissioning in 1946. Next up is the Bleo-class USS Carp, SS-338, launched in 1944 and sponsored by the wife of Ohio Representative William E. Hess. I believe her name is Stella Ostendorf Hess. I try my damnedest to find the women's names. You know, they were people, independent of their husbands, and deserved to have their names repeated. In 1988, we have another launching, this time of the USS Miami, SSN 755, sponsored by Jane P. Wilkinson. Fun fact, I went looking for a little more information about her and found out that the future USS Miami, SSN 811, is going to be sponsored by Gloria Estefan. 755 was a Los Angeles fast attack sub built by Electric Boat. She was homeboarded in Groton, and her motto was, "No free rides, everybody rows." Unfortunately, she was no longer in service, but that is a story for another time. Next up, November 13th, 1965, the USS Henry L. Stimson, SSBN 655, was launched. Her sponsor was Grace Murphy Dodd, wife of Connecticut Senator Thomas J. Dodd. Stimson, the man, not the boat, served as Secretary of State from 1929 to 1933, Secretary of War from 1911 to 1913, and then again from 1940 to 1945. Stimson, the boat, not the man, was a Benjamin Franklin-class ballistic missile submarine. In 1976, we commissioned the USS Los Angeles, SSN 688, first in its class of 62. Los Angeles was built by Newport News Shipbuilding and Drydock Company. The Los Angeles itself has entered the ship recycling program. An absurd number of her sister ships still remain out there. Almost all of the ships are named after American towns or cities, with the exception of USS Hyman G. Rickover. Rickover himself explained that they named them after cities by observing that fish don't vote. There were 3 flights of these vessels. You've got Flight 1, the original, then 2, which included 12 vertical launch tubes for Tomahawk missiles, and then the Flight 3 or 688I, improved, which were quieter and came equipped with retractable bow-mounted diving planes. They can speed along at greater than 25 knots. Actual speed is classified, don't ask, don't research, and are powered by a single S6G reactor, producing over 150 megawatts. Tom Clancy postulated in his book Submarine, A Guided Tour Inside a Nuclear Warship, that the top speed is somewhere around 37 knots. Similarly, though the Navy says the diving depth of these vessels is 650 feet, Patrick Tyler's book, Running Critical, suggests a max operating depth of 950 feet, and the 2004-2005 edition of Jane's Fighting Ships puts the max depth at 1465. These facts are largely irrelevant, and to be honest, I don't care. The fewer secrets I'm privy to, the better. Friendly reminder, folks, don't go looking for classified information. Don't do it. After this, we jump to 2002, when the USS Oklahoma City, SSN 723, serving with the George Washington Battle Group, collided with the liquefied gas tanker Norman Lady, east of the Strait of Gibraltar. No one was harmed on either vessel, but the Oklahoma City did sustain some sail and periscope damage, which necessitated a visit to Sardinia for emergency repairs. In the wake of the incident, the submarine's commanding officer was relieved of command, and 1 officer and 2 enlisted crew were disciplined for dereliction of duty. Last for this date is USS New Jersey, SSN 796, the first U.S. attack submarine designed and constructed for a mixed-gender crew. Submarines were usually male-only, though other ships such as USS Michigan have been modified to accommodate female crewmates. New Jersey was christened in 2021, and her sponsor was Susan DeMarco. Her motto is Latin for Firepower for Freedom. She is homeported at Norfolk, Virginia. On November 14, 1943, the USS Kavala, SS-244, Agato-class submarine, was launched by Electric Boat of Groton. She was sponsored by Mrs. M. Comstock, but I'm sorry to say that I can't find a real name for her, or who her husband was, or really anything about her, to be perfectly honest with you. Kavala is still around to this day, serving as a museum ship in Galveston, Texas. 1981 brings us the launching of USS Florida, SSGN 728, an Ohio-class cruise missile sub built by Electric Boat. Notice a trend yet? Her sponsor, Mrs. Marcia M. Carlucci, was the wife of then Deputy Secretary of Defense Frank Carlucci. Florida is still in active service, homeported in Kings Bay, Georgia, which I feel like we don't talk about much during these videos, even though Kings Bay serves as a home port for a significant amount of Ohio-class boats. Her motto is Latin for Fortune Favors the Brave. In 1984, USS Snook, SSN 592, was decommissioned and stricken from the Naval Vessel Register. Snook, last of the skipjack subs, entered the Ship and Submarine Recycling Program at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard in Bremerton, Washington, in 1996. USS California, SSN 781, was launched in 2010. We discussed her christening 8 days earlier by sponsor Donna Willard in a previous video. California is the 8th Virginia-class submarine, 7th of her name, currently homeported in Groton. Her motto is Latin for Silence is Golden. Fun fact, she apparently cost about $2.3 billion, which is more than I'll ever see in my lifetime, but is probably considered a paltry sum by the U.S. Navy. Down to the last day of the week, November 15th, and we start in 1944 with the commissioning of USS Bugara, SS-331, a Baleo sub that served in World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Most ships of this time were named for sea creatures, and Bugara is no exception. She is named for a multicolored fish found along the California coast. You know, when I started writing this script, I forgot that USS Seal was chosen for this date, and I wrote that whole thing about Tellaby's sponsor without remembering about it until I got here. So let's talk about USS Seal, SS-183, whose commanding officer had a wife that would go on to sponsor the USS Tullabee. Seal was decommissioned on this date in 1945 after only 9 years of service and sent to Boston, Massachusetts to sit as part of their reserve fleet. She was placed back into service in June of 1947 to serve as a Naval Reserve training ship, then transferred to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, until placed out of service and struck from the Naval Vessel Register in May of 1956. 6 days later, she was removed from Portsmouth for scrapping. Next is another decommissioning, this time of the USS Sea Poacher, SS-406, a Paleo sub built by Portsmouth Naval Yard of Kittery, Maine. She had been sent to Philadelphia in October for inactivation, then assigned to the Atlantic Reserve Fleet until 30 June 1971, when she reassumed the designation of a fleet sub until being stricken from the Naval Vessel Register in 1993, then sold off to Peru in 1974 to serve as La Pedrera. She would be decommissioned from the Peruvian Navy's fleet in 1995, hopefully for the last time. Lastly, the USS La Jolla, SSN 701, was decommissioned on November 15th, 2019. She had been converted to a moored training ship in August of 2017. Before her decommissioning, she is permanently moored at the Charleston Nuclear Power School in South Carolina. Her motto was, "Fortune favors the brave," which, if you remember from earlier, is also the Florida's model. So, can we get some originality around here? Well, that's all for this week, folks. I appreciate you sticking around. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you next time.